Manx Radio's Update with Beth Espy.
Fastamai, good evening. How are you? It is Wednesday. The weather's turned again, but fear not, we're going to brighten your next half hour with a news roundup. How exciting. On the programme tonight, more government reshuffle news. Now pay attention, there will be a quiz at the end of the week. We'll also hear from you about what you think about efforts to secure justice for those affected by the Summerland disaster. And later, why an Isle of Man endurance athlete is showing no signs of slowing down. All that, we will keep an eye on the weather and on the traffic and travel as well. And as ever, if you can let us know about anything, that'd be great. You can text 166 177 or email us here, studio@manxradio.com. We'll start with a news roundup with Lewis Fastamai.
Fastamai, starting with the weather and the impact it could have on travel to and from the island over the next few days. The steam packet has altered the timings of tonight's sailings, with the crossing from Douglas to Heysham departing at the later time of 10 o'clock. That's had a knock-on effect on tomorrow's schedule, which was already in doubt due to the forecast. Meanwhile, Loganair passengers due to fly tomorrow, Friday or Saturday are being offered the opportunity to change their travel plans without charge. The airline says it plans to fly all its scheduled services and has standby aircraft and crews in place to help recover disrupted services as soon as the weather permits. On the roads, a DOI team is repairing the traffic lights at the Woodburn Road and York Road junction in Douglas, which are currently not working. In other news, there's been a number of announcements today for people landing new jobs. Douglas East MHK Joni Farragher and Ramsey MHK Laurie Hooper have been appointed as members of the Department of Infrastructure. Mr Hooper, who's the former Health Minister, also joins the Department of Environment, Food and Agriculture as political member. And away from politics, Islands Energy Group, the company behind Isle of Man Energy, has appointed Graham Miller as its new Chief Executive Officer, taking over from Joe Cox, who resigned in September. And is there hope for the number 28 bus service to Cregneash?
I'm very confident Dr. Michelle Haywood will take this into account.
That's Krista Viol, whose Tynwald petition, containing more than 2,000 signatures in support of the scrapped service, has been handed over to the Infrastructure Minister. In the latest international news now, people are being urged to get their flu vaccines as cases in England are rising rapidly. Infections are highest in the 5 to 14 age group. The Scottish Finance Secretary is proposing more money for housing, breakfast clubs at school and benefits. Thanks to the UK budget, Scotland has an extra £3.4 billion to spend, taking the overall settlement to £47.7 billion. And French politicians are holding a debate this afternoon ahead of a no-confidence vote in Prime Minister Michel Barnier. France's far-right and left-wing forces are expected to join together to oust his government this evening. Those are the headlines. I'll be back with the news at 6 o'clock.
Thanks very much, Lewis. Now the weather brought to you by Manx Glass and Glazing. And as Lewis just mentioned, it's not brilliant at the moment. Cloudy and dry to start, though, apparently. Then an area of rain will arrive during this afternoon. I've just realised this is a forecast from slightly earlier. Oh, yeah, it is raining. There's going to be quite difficult driving conditions with some standing water on the island's roads as well. So there is going to be that risk of some localised flooding. It will soon, though, turn lighter, that rain, before gradually clearing away later this evening, and then there'll just be occasional showers overnight. The strong to near gale force southerly wind is going to turn to the west or southwest. It will ease overnight, and minimum temperatures, if you're bothered, are around 8 Celsius. So then tomorrow, it's mostly going to be dry, some sunshine at first. It'll turn cloudy again as more rain develops towards midday. It is again going to be heavy at times during the afternoon. Then it'll clear to blustery sharp showers from around dusk, and the wind will become strong and gusty by dusk as well, turning to the west or southwest and increasing to gale force during the evening. And tomorrow there could be gusts of around 40 to 50 miles an hour in the evening and overnight. Friday, though, mostly dry and bright, turning cloudy again, though, and guess what? It's going to rain again. We'll take a look at that a little bit nearer the time, because I know there was some speculation about what was going to happen weather-wise this weekend. But sunset this evening was at 3:57, sunrise tomorrow morning just after 8:20.
Manx Glass and Glazing can supply and install single, double and triple glazing. Call 674 573 or visit the showroom on the Snugborough Trading Estate.
TE Cubban provide new memorial stones, grave renovations, new inscriptions and fire hearths. Visit us at Hope Street, Castletown, or at Broadway, Douglas, or call 844 440. TE Cubban, here when you need us.
Most builders start with a hammer and saw. Manx Construction start with ideas and imagination. For new build, extension or home office, Manx Construction offer full service from planning to completion. Call Tony on 452 688.
We all need peace of mind. That's where Peace of Mind Manx Will Writing Services can help you. From just £149 plus VAT. Call 671 001 or go to peaceofmind.co.im.
At Bond Fabrics, we're not just a fabric shop. As well as curtains and upholstery and dress and costume fabrics, we've knitting and crocheting wools, made-to-measure curtain and blind service, plus poles and tracks. Visit Strand Street, Douglas, call 611856 or see bondfabrics.im.
You're listening to Update here on Manx Radio. It is exactly 6 minutes past 5. So then, last week, we heard all about the reshuffling of the Council of Ministers. Today, we hear there are 2 new faces in the Department of Infrastructure. Lewis has the details for us, and do try and keep up.
Douglas East MHK Joni Farragher and Ramsey MHK Laurie Hooper joined the DOI as members, a first for both. They'll be working alongside newly appointed Minister Dr Michelle Haywood and existing member Dawn Kinnish MLC. But why has this happened? Wasn't it just the ministers who were switched around, you ask? Well, you might remember shortly after Dr Haywood was appointed and Tim Crookall was moved to his new position of Minister Without Portfolio, Middle MHK Stu Peters left his role within the DOI. He told Manx Radio he quit to avoid potential conflict with the new minister.
I think that the new minister and I have probably got fairly different political views, which would almost inevitably come into conflict. I also think that the new minister should have the right to immediately set up her own team of people, so it struck me as being the honourable thing to do.
Hence the space or spaces in the DOI now filled by Miss Farragher and Mr Hooper. And of course, Laurie Hooper was free to take up a position after he resigned as Health Minister in October, following a row over healthcare funding. He accused Chief Minister Alfred Cannon of having the ultimate aim of privatising the island's health service, something Mr Cannon denies. Minutes later, Miss Farragher left her role as political member for the DHSC, freeing her up now for the DOI position. And meanwhile, well, it's not the only new appointment for Laurie Hooper announced today. He also joined the Department of Environment, Food and Agriculture as political member, joining Minister Claire Barber MHK and existing political member Tanya August Phillips MLC.
Lewis reporting there. 7.5 minutes past 5. We're going to stay with politics because the new health minister says she will exhaust every other path before seeing frontline services impacted. Well, Claire Christian in the House of Keys this week refused to answer whether or not she thinks Manx Care will be able to achieve its financial targets in the next 2 years without them being affected.
What concerns me the most about this, Mr Speaker, is I've asked the Chief Minister this question about 6 times and at no point was he able to give me a straight answer. I'm now asking the new Minister for Health the same question, and again I've not been given an answer here. Does she believe Manx Care are capable of coming in on budget this year or next year without impacting frontline services? It is a straightforward question, and the concern I have, Mr Speaker, is seeing as we now have 2 members of the Council of Ministers, the Chief Minister and the Minister for Health, simply unable to make that confirmation, leads me to infer that in fact it is not possible to come in on budget without impacting frontline services.
I can understand the members' frustration here. The priority will be to maintain the level of services that people rely on and ensure value for money. Between the Department and Manx Care, we're fully committed to exploring all possible options to achieve that. This includes identifying more efficiencies in how services are run and seeking additional funding opportunities and prioritising resources where they are most needed. Reducing services is not our preferred path, and we will exhaust every alternative before considering such measures. We have now allocated some additional financial support to Manx Care to assist with their cost improvement plans and to support the wider team in relation to financial discipline. I am not unable to give a yes or no answer. It is my choice that I do not give this arbitrary answer at this point. The Honourable Member requires this, but I can reassure him that I am and Manx Care are reviewing this with laser focus. And as soon as I am able to update the Honourable Members, I will do so.
Some assurances there from the Health Minister Claire Christian answering a question from her predecessor Laurie Hooper. Now, we have asked Claire Christian for an interview about her new role, and we hope that is taking place tomorrow, so we'll be able to bring you that as soon as we have it. 5:10. A petition containing more than 2,000 signatures against the removal of the bus service to Cregneash has been handed over to the Infrastructure Minister. The number 28 also services the Sound. Petitioner Krista Viol and Russian MHK June Watterson presented the document today to Dr Michelle Haywood. And Krista told us that she's optimistic now.
Some upset tourists started it originally at the Whistle Stop Cafe. They just wrote their names on a piece of paper, which is a bit unfortunate, as I learned later, because a petition has to obey certain rules to be valid. So in the end, we ended up with a good 2,000 signatures, which was great. So these 2,000 signatures, of course, I was quite happy. Unfortunately, a lot of people did not add their full address. And even those who added only their postcode, all these signatures ended up not to meet the requirements of Tynwald. So that brought us down to about 917, I think, in the end. And there also is a certain text that has to meet the requirements. And the internet petition didn't meet these requirements. So the 571 signatures of the internet petition fell through the net as well. That was a huge disappointment. But in the end, there are those 2,000 plus people who all made it very clear, whether they gave their address or not, that they want the service back. And I think that's a huge statement. And I'm very confident that Dr. Michelle Haywood, our new DOI minister, will take this into account. So my hopes are high now that things have changed. And she also said that the bus to Cregneash is high on her list of issues.
That is Krista Viol, who was the petitioner who handed over a document to Dr Michelle Haywood, the DOI minister today, alongside the Russian MHK June Watterson, for the reinstatement of the bus service to Cregneash and the Sound. It's 5:12.
Manx Radio Travel, driven by Quayside Tyres and Service Centre.
Well, just a reminder of what Lewis told us during the news headlines. Tonight's sailings to Heysham and back are going to go ahead, but they will be much later following the earlier doubts over the weather forecast. So the schedule's now been altered, with the 7:45 crossing now due to depart Douglas at 10 p.m. Passengers are being asked to check in no later than 9:15. That means the return journey, which is supposed to go at around 2:15 a.m, is now going to go at 4:30 instead. And so if you're on that voyage, you need to check in by 3:45. This is going to have a knock-on effect to tomorrow's schedule. The 8:45 to Heysham is now going to go at 10 a.m. But all Thursday sailings between Douglas and Heysham remain subject to possible disruption or cancellation. All okay down at the airport. We were getting reports a little bit earlier with something on the roads again. Those traffic lights on the Woodburn Road, York Road junction apparently weren't working again. So just take care if you're in that area. We're not sure or not if they have been fixed yet. As ever, if you spot anything when you're out and about, 166 177 or studio@manxradio.com.
Ask how you can spread the cost interest-free at Quayside.
It's 5:14 now, and a UK MP says learning from the Summerland disaster is so important in preventing further tragedies. Now, Sarah Hall, who represents Warrington, has told us that she's going to continue to advocate for the victims and survivors of the 1973 blaze. And what she's doing is seeking parliamentary support for a debate, and also wants to change the previous misadventure ruling.
The site at the moment, it's been derelict, which is terrible when you think about 50 people losing their lives on that site. I think there should be something significant there to commemorate them.
When you brought it up during the Grenfell inquiry, what was the feeling like?
You can compare the two. It's both very, very horrific circumstances that could have been avoided. And I think until we, take these things seriously, put the safeguards in place, We just don't want this to happen ever again. We don't want Grenfell to ever happen again. We don't want Summerland to ever happen again.
What are you hoping or aiming to achieve?
So I'm working with other MPs to try and get that kind of parliamentary support. And my hope from my end is trying to lobby our government to advocate on behalf of the families to see if we can get some accountability, but also, again, like I said, to keep lobbying for this memorial.
In July, I think just after the inquiry had finished, after the findings and everything had come out, the Chief Minister on the island apologised to the families. And I think it was at that time that some of the UK MPs were having some debates around this. And one of our reporters, asked him about these debates that were going on. He made a comment where he said he thinks it's unnecessary for UK MPs to talk about it or to debate it.
Warrington had 2 young men that died in that fire. We had, people like Valerie's sister and other families that had gone on holiday. And I'm their MP. I'm here to advocate in their, either in their memory or on their behalf. So I will keep doing that. That is my role. I am here. I've been elected by my constituents to support them, and I will continue to do that for as long as it takes. I mean, I've already spoken twice in the chamber, and that will continue.
That is the UK MP Sarah Hall there speaking to Chanel about her efforts to secure justice for those impacted by the Summerland tragedy. But what do you think about this? Would re-examining what happened on that fateful day in 1973 be a useful exercise? Well, Vivian contacted the Mannin Line this lunchtime to share her thoughts.
1973, I was here, I'm in Manx, and I can remember it all. I wasn't there. But the island was in mourning for a long time. I don't want anybody in England to think that the Isle of Man didn't care. Yeah. We cared very much about what had happened, and I think England wants to look after its own Grenfell and all the other disasters they've had instead of worrying about the Isle of Man. They had an apology. There was a full inquest. I can remember it all, and say to this day we all are a little horror-struck by what happened at Summerland, and nobody would ever like to see anything like that again. And I think this lady, she might think she's doing a good job, but I think she wants to, being rude, mind her own business, because the island is still coping with Summerland. I hope you agree with me on that.
That is Vivian, who called the Mannin Line today to share her thoughts. If you'd like to leave a message for the Mannin Line, incidentally, you can always call 24 hours a day. 682 631 is the number if you'd like to leave a message to be played out on air. 17 and a half minutes past 5, the island-based branch of HSBC has recently been fined nearly £300,000 after being found to have breached anti-money laundering and countering the financing of terrorism rules. The breaches occurred via 2 unconnected matters, one of which was proactively self-reported to the authority by the bank. Siobhan Fletcher reports.
In the first matter, HSBC discovered in August 2023 that earlier the same month it had paid away funds in the form of 3 recurring payments for a client that was subject to a restraint order issued by the Isle of Man courts pursuant to the Proceeds of Crime Act 2008. That order restrained the client from dealing with funds in specified bank accounts beyond permitted certain monthly payments. HSBC notified the Financial Services Authority of the breach according to its obligations under anti-money laundering and countering the financing of terrorism legislation and the Financial Services Rulebook 2016. In the second matter, on the 4th of September 2023, the authority became aware that HSBC had issued a cheque without the required consent from the Financial Intelligence Unit. Following a request from the authority, HSBC subsequently submitted the relevant notification. As a result of the 2 breaches, the bank was fined £419,900, discounted by 30% to £293,930. The FSA has said it is satisfied that HSBC cooperated fully and engaged positively, and that the responsible officers of HSBC at the relevant time have taken full responsibility for the issues identified by the authority. At the date of the settlement agreement made between the authority and HSBC, the bank confirmed that the relevant operational controls have also been enhanced to prevent any similar breach occurring in the future.
Siobhan Fletcher reporting. We're going to have some Christmas news now because the Chamber of Commerce this week has launched its annual gift appeal, so users of a number of Manx charities can get a present this Christmas. Amy has been talking to the Chamber's business support lead, Jessica Kitchen.
So this is the third year that we've ran the Christmas gift appeal, and it's such an amazing initiative. It's just so heartwarming how the general public pull together, and the support that we receive goes way beyond our membership. So it's not just businesses supporting. We get people just walking in off the street to donate. It's wonderful.
Does it come as a surprise when people are so generous and so giving year on year?
I wouldn't say it comes as a surprise because I know the Isle of Man, and I think what we do best here is pull together and we really support each other, and I love that. I see it so much. But probably the element of surprise comes from the generosity, because times are tough for all of us. I don't think cost of living has ever been so high, and I know people are cutting down kind of generally across the board. So for people to be able to kind of find that extra gift in their Christmas shopping, that's just so heartwarming, and that's amazing.
If anyone is listening to this and going, yes, I really want to get involved, I want to help, how can they do that?
So our Christmas tree is ready and waiting for deliveries. So call by. We are based at Hillary House on Prospect Hill. So just come through the double doors. You will see our Christmas tree is there with all its beautiful lights on, ready to receive gifts. And what we would say is, please wrap your gift and please label very clearly. So label with the age range that the gift is for, the gender that the gift is for, and that is wonderful.
That is the Chamber of Commerce's business support lead, Jessica Kitchen, talking to Amy there. You can find out more about that on the Manx Radio website. Now, an Isle of Man endurance athlete has no intentions of slowing down after breaking a Manx record which has stood for over 3 decades. Krista Kane explains what it was like to set a new Isle of Man women's marathon record in Valencia on Sunday, beating a previous benchmark set by Brenda Walker all the way back in 1993.
It was just overwhelming. I mean, like, even now, if I look back, I got all my official photos through this week. So just looking back on those, and I think, like, you can obviously see the difference. There's a picture at 40k where I'm checking my watch, just making sure I'm all on track. And then the photos coming down, the amazing finish, the blue carpet finish, which is very bouncy, by the way. Yeah, just going down there, you can actually see, like, if you look at the pictures, like, just how happy and, like, how I can't actually believe it. Like, the smile. I was in a world of pain at that point because I think the last 500 metres I was pushing myself harder than I probably pushed all race. But yeah, just like so happy. It's an amazing feeling.
Being an endurance athlete is not something you've been around for your whole life. It's something that in the grand scheme of things you got into relatively recently in the last 3 or 4 years or so. So what was the hook for you? What kind of got you so involved and passionate in terms of long distance competition?
I think it's the thought of, like, there's nothing really quite like the marathon. Obviously, like, there's a number of other events you can do, like 5Ks, 10Ks, half marathon even. And for me personally, there's an element of, like, you can kind of turn up and wing it a little bit. You might not get the time that you want to achieve in those races if you don't train properly for them. But with a marathon, there's just no forgiveness. And I think you've got to be ready to do a marathon. And then something just clicks in your head and it's almost like your time. You want to challenge yourself. And I've just loved everything. I love the whole process. It's all consuming. It takes over your life if you want to hit those times. But there's just nothing quite like the process you go through.
What's next for you in terms of competition? Have you got any particular plans in the short to medium term?
So a little bit of time out to begin with. I've got a nice holiday to look forward to. But yeah, the race calendar is full already for certainly 2025, and there's plans already for 2026.
That is Krista Kane there. What a fantastic achievement. She was talking to our own endurance athlete, Rob Pritchard. Well, he endures this, doesn't he? And he's here now because you just love it, don't you, Rob?
Absolutely, but I don't think I could run a marathon quite like Krista Kane does. I think it's fair to say.
Yeah, possibly not. Anyway, what else is happening in the sports world?
Well, starting with motorsport, and after a 2-year absence, FHO Racing will return to the Northwest 200 in 2025. Organisers of the meeting say race director Mervyn White agreed the deal with Feiho's team at the 2024 Macau Grand Prix last month. Both Peter Hickman and Davey Todd will line up for the squad in the Superbike and Superstock categories during the Northwest 200 race week from the 5th to the 10th of May next year. While commenting on the new agreement, Feiho host says she's very much looking forward to coming back and putting on a good show for everyone. The team withdrew from the 2023 meeting after being prevented from racing in the opening Superstock race that year, and this was due to the carbon wheels on the team's Superstock machines being deemed ineligible under the rules of the sports body, the Motorcycle Union of Ireland Ulster Centre. Well, whilst this meant at the time rider Josh Brooks had to withdraw from the rest of the meeting, Hickman continued, but in the Supersport class with his own PHR performance brand with the consent of FHO Racing. And this year the team was also absent from the meeting due to what it described as the logistics of the event being between BSB rounds, adding the move would allow them to focus on BSB commitments and the Isle of Man TT. Elsewhere, the first of a triple header of midweek hockey matches took place in Douglas last night. There was mixed Division 1 action as Viking C faced Ramsey A at the NSC, with the Northerners Ramsey coming out on top by 2-0. Nat Smith and Jane Butler were on target for Ramsey to secure maximum points. Tonight sees the turn of mixed Division 2 as winless and already relegated Valkyries D face a tough task against second-placed Castletown Camegs. That's due to get underway at QE2 in Peel from 7:30pm, but we understand that there is going to be a late pitch inspection just to check with the conditions in mind. Well, several matches have been rearranged for this week following disruption to the schedule on Saturday, the 23rd of November, due to the effects of Storm Bert. And there's football action on Ireland due to take place this evening in the form of the Isle of Man Under-18s League. A double-header of the Bowl sees Douglas High School Old Boys take on Braddon at 6:15, followed by Corinthians A versus Ramsey at 8pm.
Thank you very much indeed, Rob. And as Rob just mentioned, the conditions out there, just take care. We know there might be some standing water. It's been raining pretty heavily for most of the afternoon. We haven't heard anything about those traffic lights on the York Road, Woodburn Road junction either. So just be aware if you're in that area. They stopped working at the same sort of time yesterday afternoon. And we know there was an issue a little bit earlier as well. And you will know if you are due to be on the steam packet tonight, but that sailing to Heysham that's supposed to go at 19:45 has been rescheduled. It's going to go at 10 instead. It is going to have a knock-on effect with the return sailings and also tomorrow's schedule as well. But again, possible weather disruption coming up because of a strong wind. So we'll keep you posted about all of that here on Manx Radio. Throughout the night, the best place to go is manxradio.com, where you can follow us on our social pages as well. That is all from Update this evening. Thank you very much indeed for your company. Again, as ever, find out more about our top stories at manxradio.com. You can find the longer interviews too in the newscast section. There's also the sports interviews as well in the sportscast section. And as I mentioned earlier, if there's something you have an opinion on, you can leave a message on our out of hours man and line number 682-631. On Manx Radio this evening, up next, it is Spotlight with Howard Kane. Then we've got Chris Kinley here live with Greatest Hits from 6pm. Ernie Thorne has the Opera Hour from 9. And then Rhiann Evans is in charge of After Hours tonight, and that is from 10pm. Have a great one, whatever you're doing, and we will be back with you with Update from 5pm tomorrow.